Hi, welcome to the Nostalgia Train Book Club for our October discussion with very thematically appropriate for October, Vampire Academy. Whoop whoop. I'm Violet, and I have some regular guests with me today. Intro yourself.
Cool. Hi, I'm writing mom Samantha Ellen Assett. I host live streams on Mondays at 7 p.m. I actually am starting my own book club thingy, which our first one will be Saturday. We will be talking about the book Fantasy Lover. Mine is it's basically just me and CB making each other read books that we really enjoy. So at least one of us will always really like the book we're talking about and potentially defending our selves. This was my first time reading Vampire Academy, though I did see the movie with my dad way back in the day. But I could not remember much from the movie at all. So I have thoughts and opinions. Mark.
Yeah. I read this in high school. I remember binging this whole series, all 6 books. That would have been like 10 to 12 years ago now, I guess. Wow, I did not like doing that math. But I didn't remember a lot of details. I remembered who the love interest was, and I have one very clear memory of something that happens in like book 4 or 5. But other than that, it was pretty much a blank slate going into this. So I was excited to see if it held up. And I've never seen the movie, I've never seen the TV show, any of that.
Oh, yeah, there is
Okay, interesting. Yeah, this was also my first time reading. And it feels like one of those like properties that like I've just always known about, like Vampire Academy, Vampire Academy. And for some reason I never read it, which doesn't make any sense because I was such a Twilight girly. And this came out 2 years after Twilight, but I didn't read Twilight until like 2007 or 2008. So this would have been like, I was like right there. I was like the prime reader demographic. What was I doing? I don't know. And then I never watched the movie. Well, I have now. I watched it 2 days ago or 3 days ago. But yeah, so it was really cool to go into something that felt iconic to me that I was literally had no like idea of it. Like some of the other properties that I never read before, I at least like knew like some of the tropes or some of the character names or I don't know, like an iconic line or something. And this, I literally knew nothing. I was like, it's vampires at a school, right? So I was really excited for this one. Let's say hello to our friends. Gaze is here. Can a vampire knight and princess be less romantic couple? Find out on Vampire Academy. Oh, Anna's here, not lurking.
I love the knight and royalty trope so much, though.
I shall now put up the spoiler banner because we will be spoiling the book 1. And Mars, I ask you to try to not spoil the other books to the best of your ability.
That one scene from book 4.
It's like what I like have it so clearly pictured in my mind. It's like 3 seconds of action. And I'm like, I don't know why that has stuck with me throughout the years, but it has.
I know that was like during the Cirque du Freak live show way back in the day. Crystal and I were like trying so hard not to spoil different things in the rest of the series. We're like the thing that we're not going to say that happens later.
So, funny enough, gays everywhere. Violet backstage was saying how she also felt it could have been Little Sapphic. I didn't get that vibe, weirdly. Like, they're very codependent, but like there just wasn't the romantic undertones for me between the two. I think is the thing. And I know that like feeding is supposed to be sexual and stuff, but like I think like they have a very, for me, they have a very familial bond, and feeding on each other, well, not each other, but her letting Lissa feed on her to survive, I felt was just very, you would do anything for your sister. So that was how I took it though. But
I feel like they
Where
didn't.
I wish I still had the copy because I just loaned it from the library and gave it back. I should have marked the quotes and things that really hit for me.
Yeah, I feel like I didn't even think about it because I knew going into it who all of the like romantic pairings were, so I was just not even thinking about subtext.
Mars was like, I knew all these people were straight, so it didn't even enter my mind.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. It's like when you go, especially when you go into a YA vampire book, you know there's going to be romance. It's YA and it's vampires. Like, I don't know.
I think I've just read so many YA vampires that like I know how the romantic interest is going to be portrayed, and since Lissa wasn't portrayed that way, I'm like, it's not her.
Maybe it was also me, like with my 2024 lens, looking at it like, what? Picking up on that like sapphic undertone. I probably would have maybe went over my head if I would have read this in 2007. Hi, Malin.
Hey. I have found that amongst my friends, like I have no idea if you have siblings or not, but my friends who are often only children will tend to pick up romantic things between siblings that just, I'm like, I don't understand how you got that, because I have a very close relationship with my sisters, and so, but like my other friends who have siblings and have so I think I've always wondered if that could be like also a socialization thing, that like people who grow up with siblings are like, no, yeah, siblings we're weirdly connected in ways that only children go, no, you gotta be into somebody to do that. So
yeah, but not in a Mortal Instruments way.
Oh no.
Nope.
Yeah, Gaze Everywhere is a shipper.
Yeah, that's fine.
Can't help it. Still to this day, one of my favorite series, but did not reread. Was in a reading and writing slump. Me too. I've had like my worst reading slump this month. It's such a fast-paced book, surprisingly. I remember reading it fast, but this was like binge level reading fast. Oh, should we talk about plot and pacing?
I think I read it in, if not like one day, definitely like a 24-hour period. I might have like started it before bed and then finished it the next morning.
Oh, I reread it yesterday, so it's definitely quick pace.
Okay, I did see that that she had another vampire series. I didn't know it was a spinoff.
Yeah, it follows like the cousin of some character in one of the later books, I think. I never read them.
I went to the library today to see if they had, the library app to see if they had the audiobook for book 2, and they didn't. They only had book 1. But then they had the audiobook for this other series of hers. I was like, what is that?
I had to do some serious hunting to find this book. It was not any of my usual places to find it. I was like on the 4th page of Google when I finally found a way to read this book.
Damn. I will say I find this has nothing to do with the book itself, but the audio narrator, at least for the one I read, her name was Stephanie Wolf, and I thought that was really funny that her name was Wolf and she's narrating a vampire novel.
It's probably what I read too. I mean, I don't know if there's multiple versions of the audiobook. Okay, so do we have opinions on the plot and pacing?
I really enjoyed the plot and the pacing. I felt it was like very teenagery in what went by fast and what was like focused on and taken a little slower, which is a YA novel, so that's like the intent. And I don't know.
For me, I got really pulled into it. Like,
yeah.
I thought that like probably in the first, I don't know, 20% of the book, 30%, I was like, oh my God, this is gonna be my favorite book club book of the year. I'm gonna love this. Yeah, but then when I realized maybe where the romance was going, it spoiled it a little for me. But then the end, it ended also really solid. Like the plot really tied together so nicely. That then I was like ended on a high note. So I started on a high note and ended on a high note. So
good. I just want to say for the record, when I say it was very teenagery, that's not a bad thing. Like I don't perceive teenagery things as bad, especially.
Oh no, I love like soapy YA. I love that.
Yeah, I'm reading it and I'm like, my God, they're such teenagers.
Yeah, I was like, oh.
I literally, when I was like writing in my reading journal, my like thoughts, I'm like, this reads like a trashy CW show in the best way.
Yes! This is so much better than a CW show, but yes, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, like I said, in the beginning, I was like kicking myself so hard. Like, why did I not read this when it came out? Like, I was in the age group, I was in the demographic. Like, this was right up my alley, so I was really kicking myself.
I'm like, this would have been my jam, damn it.
Hold on, let me catch up on these comments because people are here today and talking.
Exciting.
I remember this book series because the Peacock series was kind of a banger. Shame it got canceled. I did want to watch the series as well, but I didn't get around to it. Oh, and the spinoff, she meets an alchemist at some point or something? We follow her and another character. Oh, from the initial series. Okay, cool. Also, we see Rose again in the spinoff. But like barely. Actually, Malin, I thought of you because isn't your one book have a character called Rose? So when I found out the character was called Rose, I immediately had that association in my head.
I also thought of Malin the first time. I'm like, oh, Rose.
Yeah. Like I literally knew nothing about this book. I was like, oh, it follows a girl named Rose. Oh, and Lissa. I'm like, oh, okay. I had no idea. Like literally nothing.
Isn't Lissa Marta's protagonist?
Yeah, I was also like that was my other connotation. I was like, this is so weird.
Let me tell you, the name Vasilisa fucked with my dyslexia because I kept thinking I knew they were saying Vasilisa, but my brain kept going, the vessel Lisa. I'm like, that's not what that is.
Oh, okay. This makes me want to continue the series even more when I hear that book 2 was a favorite. Mm-hmm. I think the author knew how to incorporate vampire lore really well without being overbearing. Everything connected somehow. Didn't feel like it was a haphazard world. She thought it through a lot. Wait, I have a banner for this.
Yeah. If we're going into this, I have so much.
I know. I actually kind of wanted to start with this one, but then pacing got brought up naturally. Hold on. Yes. Also, the connection between plots in each book feels purposeful. Love to hear that. Like she thought through the entire plot over the arc of the series. Exactly. Mm-hmm. Okay, this is making me really intrigued to read the series. You guys are selling me on it. This is what always happens during the live shows. Like the nostalgia fans always like pull it out.
I didn't see the word my rose at first. I was like, I don't think shy.
Yeah. This Rose was not shy. Yeah. What did she always say? Like, I'm the chaotic one, you're the whatever one, or what did she say? She had
things through.
Yeah, she's like, you're the careful one, or she always had that stupid little saying.
I'm the rash one, you're the cautious one, or something.
Yes, yeah, something like that. Okay, vampires, tropes, and powers. So the vampires in this series are a little bit different because they're actually not called vampires.
The vampires in this series are actually very heavily influenced by Eastern European lore, the Romanian and Balkan lore. I found that really interesting. Like Moroi and Strigoi are Romanian terms, but like when you go into those kind of folklore, vampires are less bloodsuckers like we think of them now, and they're more like just more akin to like zombies or undead phantom things. Like I have notes.
I think she did really well like introducing them as well, because I didn't get lost in the lore. It was really like
yeah. I feel like it was introduced at like very pivotal moments, and she like told you what you needed to know when you needed to know it.
Exactly. Kind of was like a seamless flow.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I did find it really interesting that she used Moroi for the living vampires and Strigoi for the undead ones, because in her lore, Strigoi are cut off from magic. But the word Strigoi is like lore-wise connected to like Strega and Striga and I think Strig, which are all words for witches in different cultures, like Italian, Venetian. I forget where Strig comes from, but yeah. So those words are all like different types of witches. So then it's like, so she chose to use Strigoi, which is the one that's more connected to like magic and stuff for the vampires that no longer have any. Dampier is actually not Romanian though. Dampier is a Balkan term, and the Balkan myth of Dampiers are really interesting because more often than not, the idea was that a husband came back from the dead and impregnated his wife, and now they have a half vampire child. And Dampiers were like revered as protectors. Like it was good luck to have a Dampier in your house, and they were like vampire hunters usually. So then so I like that, like that's pretty much is Rose, right? And even in the like book lore, she was like more often than not, like Dampiers are created from a Moroi dad.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So
Yep, she did say that.
I was like, that is a real, like, I don't generally go into modern vampire fiction. Like, I usually expect them to draw from more modern interpretations of vampires. So to go into this and see so many references to like really old vampiric folklore, I was so excited. Cause like I was like, fuck yeah, this is my jam. And I love how like she did all of that.
Yeah, it was definitely cool. I also put here, tropes and powers, because I thought the power aspect was interesting. How she had it, like they kind of like a speciality, or what did they call it?
They could use the elements, which nowhere in the book did they list all of the elements. So I'm not sure if it's a 4 or a 5 element system. They only list 4, but then there's also spirit as the 5th element. So
Yeah, they kind of talk about it as like lost in the lore because they have Saint Vladimir. Was that his name?
yes.
Yep.
They like talk about him being full of spirit, and like they kind of just forgot that that was an element that he could control, and they're like, oh yeah, it means the Holy Spirit, right?
Yeah, I love how that misinterpretation, because that's like that's a very real thing that could happen. It like goes, it reminds me of the whole, well, how did the Romans make that cement? And it's because they used seawater, but they just didn't break down seawater because they assumed you would know salt water. So
That's a good thing. What I'll say I liked about her approach to vampires, and maybe it's just the overall tone of the book, but in a time when vampires were really dark and broody, she decided to just have fun.
that's fair.
Yeah. Wait, what else did I get here? And it's not like someone's going, well, Rose, as you already know, plus lore dump. Oh, God. Rose was just as lost as we were because she was isolated. Yeah.
I absolutely adore that she showed all of Rose's research on page, and then some of it still went over Rose's head, but the reader was able to figure things out on their own.
Yeah, I agree. Like I said, that's why the ending of the book was so satisfying for me, because like all the little elements had already been set in place, but it never really felt like, because it's not a quest book or something. So there's not like this big thing that you're building to. It's just like, it was just so satisfying. I don't know how to.
It's because all the little crumb, like, it's what I love about mysteries the best, right? Because it's essentially they're solving a mystery throughout.
Yeah.
And all the little cookie crumbs and stuff are there, and everything makes sense. It doesn't feel like anything, like even the fact that Rose was so hesitant to like tell about the thing, you find out is most like it's never confirmed, but it's most likely because that one teacher whose name escapes me like compelled her, right? And it's like part of that could still be there, and that could be why Rose was like, no, we can't tell anybody, right?
Yeah.
Even at the detriment to their safety. But then, because compulsion can be overcome with willpower, eventually she's like, no.
Yeah, I didn't even talk about the compulsion when we're talking vampire tropes. Like compulsion, that's like a peak vampire trope, and I loved how it was used in this story.
Mm-hmm.
Hold on. Melon's saying, love the character of Christian, having his parents be Strigoi. It makes a really interesting depiction of the society's bias. Yeah, he was a cool character.
I got classism. There were so many different levels of classism. I want to talk about that so much when we get there.
Oh yeah, the spin on the Orthodox Church. It was a little bit interesting how they wove this like religious line through.
But it was religious in a different way than you usually see in vampire novels, which I really appreciated.
Yeah, it felt unique.
Mm-hmm.
I liked it too.
It's okay, we understood.
Ooh. Color me intrigued. Compulsion in this was so horrifying in here. Like it's an out-of-body experience where you're still technically out of control, but you're not.
The way it should.
I just love that, sometimes main characters, they really feel like a Mary Sue or something. And I liked that Rose like had a very fleshed out personality that you could see that she was kind of fiery. She was protective, impulsive.
I like how at the beginning, like the way the book introduces them and their plight is so good to me. And then especially since it's like, oh, well, Rose has been like, keeping Lissa safe and taking care of her for all these months. And then Rose starts classes and she's like, I know nothing. I'm like, I love that. She's like, okay, maybe I do need these extra lessons and stuff. And
even like the training montages in this were not boring to me, which sometimes I don't really like those type of scenes, but like with the running that Rose had to do, I found that really funny. So I'm getting lost in the comments. Where was I here? I kind of love that we eventually have vamps who are like, no, we're not the monsters. These guys are the real monsters. Rose is a fun character to follow, and also her friendship with Lissa is one of my favorites depicted.
I absolutely love them.
Is there any other vampire tropes we want to discuss? Like, just the fact that they did everything a little bit like Eastern European, like the Slavic Russian sort of vibe. Felt very, I don't know, tropey to me. Silver stakes they had. Nighttime. Blood drinking, obviously.
I love Gay's comment here. Rose was the ideal YA protagonist because she's not a cookie cutter tough girl trope, but she also doesn't trade her femininity to be stronger along the way.
Yeah, she was a really good character, and I love the power set that she has of like the seeing through Lissa's eyes. It's like literally one of my favorite powers. I have it in one of my own stories, so I'm like, oh my god, I love this. Like, I'm trash for this.
That was such a fun way to do a limited dual POV.
So clever. Yeah, and it was so clear. Like, I don't know how you guys felt. Well, we can talk about it in writing style, but like, it was very clear to me. Like, okay, now we're seeing Lissa through Rose's eyes. Like, or you know what I meant.
I mean, it should have always been super clear because she very bluntly on the page was like, oh, and I was pulled into Lissa.
Yeah, but I don't know. I think sometimes writers flub transitions like that. Or maybe I just get confused easily.
No, it's good. No, I think the transitions were done very well. I'm just if it was unclear to a reader, I'm going to be a little judgy of that reader.
Yeah.
Like, how did you miss that? So
Yeah, but I also did think the fact that the character's name was Christian, who was the guy who had the Strigoi parents and was always in church, was really funny.
I didn't even register that, you know? That is very funny though.
Okay, so if we don't have anything else to say about tropes, do we want to do setting or romance? What do you guys want to talk about?
I kind of want to talk about the romance.
yeah, let's
Yeah,
go to the
let's just go for the jugular.
Well, we'll start off with something a little bit easier than the big romance. One thing that confused me was you have this like thing happening in the background of two guardians like abandoning their post and running off together, and it's like frowned upon because they can't have kids together because they're both Dampiers. But then when Rose is like, she's like, okay, I don't want to hang around with these Moroi guys anymore because they've been complete jerks, and obviously I can't date my instructor who I really want to. Maybe Mason isn't so bad and he's like really into me, but he's also a Dampier, so I don't understand why they would be allowed to date.
It's
That
not
was
that they're
it's
not that they're not allowed. It's just that it's frowned upon.
I don't know, that
Their
seems
population
like
circumstances. I don't understand why. Honestly, I don't understand why the two guardians ran off. Like, that makes no sense to me, because like it's one of those things where societally it's frowned upon, but it's not illegal. like
yeah.
they can. They'll just be infertile together, and that's it. So I'm wondering if there's like more to that than just the infertility issue. Yeah, the infertility thing with like the Dampiers is really odd to me. But Rose also doesn't seem like somebody, like, it does not seem like she wants kids.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think the Mason thing would be like that big a issue. I feel so bad for Mason though. I love her and Mason. Like, they have such good chemistry and they get along, and like, I mean, I don't ship them only because she is so disinterested, and I don't believe in shipping a ship when one half is very clearly not into the ship. But
Yeah, I don't know.
the whole like the whole fertility and infertility thing is very complex, and I felt an unnecessary addition to the world lore.
Yeah, that made me wonder if is it going to be something in later books that comes up, because otherwise it did feel not necessary to
I'm
establish
hoping,
this.
because everything else is done so well. I am also hoping it's
I feel like it made sense
groundwork.
because it like gives a reason for why the Moroi and the Dampier have the type of relationship that they have. Like,
I guess so,
Dampier. I mean, it's weird to me because the Dampier are like, our race is gonna die out, and I'm like, I get that, but also, I agree that it was like introduced a little weirdly, but I do get why that element was introduced.
See, but for me, it's like the Dampier, like, oh well, our race is gonna, die out, and it's like, then why are you on the front lines? Like, it makes as much sense for you to be on the front lines as it does for the Moroi, when both are concerned about their population dying out.
Well, that is something that they do mention, how the Moroi used to be more like proactive in fighting the Strigoi with their magic and stuff, but in recent times they've kind of like pulled back. So I don't remember. That's probably something explored in future books, but
yeah, like I said, I have faith in her that it's the groundwork being laid down because of how well she handles everything else. But like, otherwise, I side eye it really for being a thing.
Well, like for me, what was weird about the romance in this book was like I said at the beginning, I was getting weird sapphic vibes. And then all of a sudden it took like a hard turn into like high school drama, dating, slut shaming. Like all of a sudden, like all these guys are like into Rose. There's like this weird flirting thing going on. And I don't know, it jostled me. I wasn't expecting it.
I have such mixed feelings about the slut shaming because, like, one, the slut shaming, that is like a very real thing, and it's like it was portrayed extremely real, right? My only but my hang up with it is basically Rose is like, oh well, slut shaming is bad until she can utilize it as a weapon. And then she's like, well, it's okay to use it because they started it, right? And I'm just fighting back. And I'm like, I don't like that. I don't like, it's a character flaw, and that's fine. Character should be flawed. I don't like it.
I don't know. It just pulled me out of the plot. I know it was important for between the high school cattiness that was going on.
Also, Rose has this very Madonna whore thing going on. Like, I absolutely love that Rose is basically just like, yeah, no, I don't care if people think I'm a slut. Like, whatever. It's fine. Like, what's wrong with, like, enjoying a lot of sex and stuff? Except she's not actually doing anything. So, like, she gets to have the, like, attitude and the confidence of somebody who's like, oh, yeah, no, let them perceive me as somebody who, like, really, does all this stuff, but she's still, like, the virginal main character, and I'm like,
yeah.
So I also, like, I come from a place of where I was also very a Madonna horror teenager, where I was like, I don't give a fuck what people think of me, but also I'm waiting till marriage because sex is terrifying. But, like, that's not, I feel like because this is a YA novel and stuff, that, like, they're trying to have their cake and eat it too.
Yeah, I did feel at times that it was being, like, overly edgy, especially for, like, the 2007 era, like, what's Marilyn saying? Okay, I'm gonna say this one thing about the romance. It was okay in book one, never bothered me. I read it first when there wasn't a big public discourse about age gaps, but in the next books, I believed in it a lot more because Rose goes through some shit and matures fast, which makes them a lot more equal. It's very frowned upon. It happens, but you don't get treated too kindly for it. Still love the instructor, though. Sorry, but I know a hot man when I read about him. I don't know. I think the audiobook voice for him was so... I don't know. I don't like that Russian accent.
I didn't
like the
audiobook, but every now and then I remembered he had a Russian accent, so I would start giving it to him in my, like, mental voice, and I'm like, this is not good.
Yeah, I think that's why the romance went over my head that they were going to be paired together, because I didn't realize, like, his age. I thought he was way older than her, but he is way older than her. So when it started, like, getting that they were close, and I was like, wait, isn't he way older? And it was like, oh yeah, he is. I was, like, totally gobsmacked. I did not see it coming.
Much like the slut shaming, I have mixed feelings about the age gap, because I feel like I think I actually think she handles it very responsibly in book one, right? Because, like, we've got a teenager who's got her crush on an older man, right? But he draws firm boundaries, and he, like, tells her, no, you're too young. 7 years, like, right now is a really big deal, right? Like, when you're older, 7 years isn't gonna matter, but right now 7 years matters a lot. And Rose also, like, considers that, like, he could lose his job if they started anything and everything. And so I think that like, I do think it's handled responsibly. I kind of side-eye Dimitri at different points, though, when he, like, because he's in a position of power over Kurt, and, like, when she's, like, waves when they're on the run, and he, like, barks at her or, like, gets annoyed at her or something, and then he, like, catches her with Jesse, and he's, like, overly aggressive there, and she's like, oh, well, it's because of your trauma, and he's like, yeah. And I'm like, sir. Also, and just the fact that like he's checking her out, and I'm like, sir, it is made very clear you are very aware she is 17.
Yeah, I don't know. I couldn't get past the age gap. I thought that it was just going to be like a crush plot, and then when it wasn't just a crush plot, it was kind of, I don't know. The thing is, like, Gaze and Malin are saying they are fine with it, but like for me, I don't know why, but for some reason it felt yuckier to me this couple year age gap between them than like Edward and Bella, which have like 100-year age gap.
No, there's I saw a reel the other day where it was like, how old are you? 17? How long have you been 17? And he's like, 30 years. And so then the girl was like, so you're 47? And it was like, well, yeah, that's nothing though, because I'm still 17. And she's like, I don't know, somehow that's kind of more gross than if you were like 200. And I'm like, yeah, that's exactly right. It somehow is more gross.
Yeah, I don't know why. I think it's like when we had the Twilight discussion, it was that like we talked about how like, oh, Edward was like permanently like stunted at 17 mentally and physically. So I don't know, something about that made it not as icky to me as this. Whereas Dimitri is clearly a man and it's like, ugh, yuck. They're both at equal threat being on the front lines, but in further shows the difference in class.
The classism.
Vampire lives don't mean as much, yeah. Or Dampire, sorry.
When we get to themes.
I feel like Rose reacts that way because of her dad being Morai and her mom a tough Dampire. Oh yeah, her mom. I forgot like how her mom is just like slightly brought up and what that suggests about their relationship.
Her mom exists in the narrative to me.
Yeah, her mom was just like, I'm like, oh, this is definitely coming up later in the series. It has to. You wouldn't just like tinily drop like little things about her mom and otherwise. I truly feel like the ages here are beyond understanding. But I think Dimitri kind of understood her struggles more than she realized and was, to some extent, a safety net, as much as he wasn't.
Like, to be clear, I think, like, I loved the scenes between Rose and Dimitri. Like, they were great, and I felt he was a really good mentor figure and a safety net and stuff. And for a 17-year-old who's never really been able to rely on anybody, like never truly been able to rely on anybody, I 100% see where Rose is coming from. Like, her crush on him makes so much sense and stuff and everything, right? It is only Dimitri
yeah. For me, that's where the line was drawn too. Like, why couldn't they just have made it a one-sided crush of a student?
Or for Dimitri to not genuinely have feelings until later, like in later books.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Like, then later bring the plot point back. Like, I don't know.
Because like by the end of book 1, they're not together, and she's like accepted that it's not okay and stuff, right? So like, we could have taken away Dimitri's feelings for her, and the only thing that would have changed is the roofie scene. the magical roofie scene would have been the only thing. Okay, wait,
Madeline just brings up a point that I was just going to talk about, because it wouldn't have sold as well. And I was just going to say, like, but in 2007, I think this was like somehow allowed. Like, this was okay culturally, and it was expected.
Culturally, it was still expected that, like, you know, younger girls, older men. And like,
this came out 2 years after Twilight, and like, again, when you're comparing it to like a whatever 90, 100-year age difference, it's
also, like I said, she handled I feel like the author handled it very responsibly, right? Like the way that it was spoken about and everything, and like the stuff that the firm line and boundary that Dimitri puts between them. I dislike that the only reason it gets through to Rose is because Dimitri is like, if we're in love with each other, then we might prioritize each other over Lisa. And then Rose is like, you have a point. So I'm like, okay then.
I also think this is funny that Gaze is like, just pretend.
I do appreciate that he wasn't like, I don't know, I feel like when you have a couple that's not supposed to be together for whatever reason, not just an age gap. A lot of times in fiction, they'll be like, "Oh, just wait for me and we can be together one day." And I appreciate that he wasn't like, "Just
Yeah,
wait
he
until you
wasn't
grow up and
grooming.
then we'll be together."
Yeah, that's even more icky.
Yeah, he was very much the opposite of a groomer. And
Mhm.
that is the only reason I'm like, maybe in later books I can like this. And I hate I hate when authors give me a love triangle and it's like this is why this one part of the triangle should not exist. And I'm like, yeah, no, that makes sense. They should in fact not be together. And then on the other side, they're like, and here's like the perfect romance interest. But
Yeah.
our character has no interest in them. And I'm like, why did you do that? Why would you give me a glance of, because like her and Mason would be so cute, at least from
Yeah.
book one. Her and Mason would be so good together. Like he helps her out and he doesn't like, yeah, he has a crush on her, but he doesn't have any genuine ulterior motives when he's helping her out and stuff.
It doesn't feel incel-y or something.
Yeah, it's not
Genuinely
incel-y.
friends too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he likes her and stuff and like, yeah, he makes like he gets jealous, but you know what he does that Dimitri does not? He apologizes for his jealous reactions. And I'm like, yeah, see, look, most love triangles are one-sided on at least one side. It's fine. But like he's like, I'm sorry I was an ass. I was just jealous. And I'm like, look at this mature teenage boy over here. But alas, they can never be because Rose isn't into him. And that's totally fine. She doesn't owe him anything, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But this is fictional, and thus this was a choice the author made, so I can be annoyed at the author.
Yeah, but again, if we're going to compare this to Twilight, which I think is its natural comparison because this probably got published off of the Twilight wave, like compared to Bella having literally every guy like in love with her, like every single guy in her high school, like this was better.
But compared to Twilight, this is miles better on absolutely every angle. But I judge a book based on it itself. So
Yeah. The age gap was too creepy for me, but I did like the sort of petty he said, she said drama of who's dating who and who messed around with who, and that I love that stuff.
That shit in a school setting. Or well, actually, that's one reason I enjoy YA. I'm like, I'm here for the drama. Like when it's adults doing it, I get annoyed sometimes. Like you should fucking grow up. But for teenagers, I'm like, no, they're teenagers. This is what
that's the joy of YA. But Madeleine's right. There was also great friendships depicted in the story.
Oh yeah, I 100% hope that Mason's romantic crush goes away and then they're just platonic friends. I love that.
Oh, I already took down the banner. I was like, oh, let's move on to something else. Do we have anything else to say about age gaps, slut shaming, queer baiting?
The actual ship that nobody has considered is Dimitri and Mason.
We didn't, but we also didn't even talk about Lissa.
Christian.
Yeah.
Oh, fuck. I was going to say, I like that Lissa has, in fact, had sex before, and it's not actually a big deal. Like, Rose feels a little jealous because she's like, well, I haven't had sex yet.
See, when she felt jealous, I thought it was for a different reason. I'm just...
As a demisexual who had hoe friends and was jealous that I could not participate in the hoe life, I understood Rose there. But also, maybe Rose is bi and she has a little bit of a crush on me.
She does give big bisexual energy. I won't lie.
That's what I'm saying.
I said that because I'm like, I related so much to Rose, and I'm like, I'm pan. So maybe Rose is pan. Maybe Rose and
I totally got that vibe, and I don't know if it was intentional on the author's part or if it just
I don't know.
Because it was partially because of the sexy blood sucking.
It was interesting to me that whenever she talked about the blood sucking, she talked about it in such a sexual manner, but not with Lissa. I feel like she did draw this hard line that she never thought of it sexually with Lissa.
Okay, but to be fair, in the movie, because I watched the movie, they did kind of make it a little bit but they did it in a way where like Lissa was trying to do that like girls kiss at a party to get attention from boys kind of way. Like, that's what it felt like.
Interesting
is
choice.
straight, okay.
But that was film only, so
See, I know they talked about the blood sucking in a sexual way, but I only ever took it from the lens of like a drug addiction allegory, because that was also definitely there. So I kind of just skipped over the like, and sometimes it's a sexual kinky thing.
Yeah, let's go to themes.
Oh, you want to do themes next?
Yes.
Okay. Can do.
Yeah, see, Malin, that's what I said, is that it felt very like sisterly, which is why Rose. It felt to me like, because like Mars was saying, like as with many modern depictions of vampirism, it was very clearly an allegory for drugs, right? And like at some point, Rose even says it's like drugs, but like so much better. So I feel like when she thinks of it with Lissa, she's like, oh yeah, me and Lissa do like coke together sometimes. But then also I'd like to do coke with, I'd like to sniff coke off of a nice pack of abs, right? Like, this does not necessarily mean she wants to sniff coke off her sister's abs.
I don't know. I felt it totally in a sexual way. Like, ooh, me and Lissa like make out for fun sometimes, just for fun, girly fun. But you know, like, it's more to me. But also part of the fact that she was like so shameful that she was like, what was the word for like when you get bitten off of? Feeder? No, something like that.
Feeder.
That she felt so shameful for it. It also felt like queer shame. I don't know. Like the allegory was there, you guys.
I totally agree that it's a valid interpretation.
Yeah, it's a valid interpretation.
I do find it interesting. This book, of all books, actually touches a little bit on bloodsucking as a potential sexual trauma, which is fucking insane for a YA book.
So Rose is a London doing lines in the bathroom. That's what she wants to be. But like, it's
okay. Back to themes. Sorry, we got sidetracked.
So no, like the feeding is very clearly a like addiction allegory and stuff. Especially since like Rose apparently has drunk and done drugs, and she's not addicted to either of those. But feeding, she really wants to be fed from.
Oh, there was a funny part when they go to the place where they drink off of like the volunteers, and they're like, yeah, this book had like so many moments of being like not like breaking the fourth wall, but being like very. Sorry, this does not fit with theme. It felt very modern. I don't know with the references to me. And when it was talking about like, yeah, these are like the people who are like obsessed with vampires, and then they like volunteer for this, and like you know the person you know in high school who was obsessed with vampires. I'm like, oh my god, Crystal. I was like, what? Crystal's one of those guys?
It feels like the references and the stuff that they make are very evergreen. They're not they don't date themselves because they're not like direct, because they like pop culture references and stuff that they make are all in world pop culture references.
Yeah, like if you would have told me this came out in like 2014, 2016, I would have believed it, and not 2007. Like, sorry, I got sidetracked. We can go back to the point. Themes and symbols.
Classism. Oh my god, layers and layers and layers of classism. Like, and Rose's classism too. Rose is an interesting character to me in that she acknowledges a lot of the toxicity that she has internalized, whether it be sexism, classism, or just like all of her prejudice that she's internalized. She consciously knows these are bad things and I should not do them unless she can weaponize them. And then the moment she can weaponize them, she's just as bad as everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
Totally.
Because it's like, oh, this rumor went around that like, you know, I fucked these two guys and was fed from them, and like this like fucking destroys her. It like demolishes her. Not that they're like, you're fucking, but that they're the feeding part that like really hurts her. And then she like finds out that Mia got them to spread those rumors because she cheated on her boyfriend and slept or by sleeping with the two guys. And then she just immediately, without hesitation, starts telling everybody that. So
Yeah. It felt very appropriate for her age to like be aware of these things, but also not fully grasp it in its entirety.
Yeah, I honestly think that the author really nailed this sort of high school petty drama, the motions. So many little attention to detail like that was like really on point.
Yeah, like I said earlier, it is a character flaw, and characters should be flawed. And I really like the way that, what is the author's name? So I can just
Rochelle Mead.
Thank you. I like how Miss Mead did it. So like, because it shows that she like Rose has growing room, but also she is a rash teenager she is an impulsive teenager who does what feels good in the moment, right? And of course it's easy for me, a 30-something, to look and be like, you're being so hypocritical and stuff, but like at the end of the day, it's perfectly fine, and like, characters should have flaws, and we don't have to like or agree with their flaws and stuff, because that's just good writing.
Yeah, I agree. I think it was really well done. Like I said, she felt like dynamic. The characters felt dynamic and not flat.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to think of any other symbols. Well, I mean, obviously there was that rose necklace that felt really on the nose, but they like called out that it was on the nose. Like that's what made it not corny.
Yeah.
So it's funny to me because like every Rose I have ever known hates getting Rose things. Like my grandma's name is Rose, and she doesn't particularly enjoy when people like buy her things with roses on them and stuff. And I'm like, so the fact that Rose is like, I hate getting Rose things, but Lissa still does it. I'm like, that is such a sibling thing. So
Other motifs. I'm trying to think.
the classism, I like that the classism is done like in certain layers, and there's Venn diagrams to the classism.
Yeah.
It's not just because in a lot of like in a lot of fantasy or alternative settings and stuff, you've got like, oh well, it's the royalty, and then it's a very like, it's a cake layer, which there's nothing wrong with having it be a cake layer and stuff, but in reality, that's often not how class systems are, right? And like, let's take Christian, who I love. I fucking love Christian. He is my emo sad boy, the I Can Fix Him character. I love him so much, and he's portrayed so well. Sorry, I will fangirl over Christian later, but he's royalty, right? And like, there's only 12 royal houses, who several of them are down to their last heir. But we've only got 12 royal houses, and he's one of them. But because not even his whole family, from what I understand, because like his aunt didn't do it, and we don't know how many other members of the family there are, I think, but because his parents went Strigoi, everybody like ostracizes him because even if you are royal, being Strigoi, like being connected to the Strigoi by association, automatically like makes you the lowest of the low, right? The only people lower than the Strigoi are Blood Horse, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is interesting that Dimitri grew up in a blood brothel. I forgot what it's actually called. Oh
No, I liked how they did the royalty in this, like that it was sort of like staggered like that.
Oh, sorry, that reminded me because of Queen Titania. I detest how all of the women in power are perceived negatively, but the men in power are very understanding. Like, I like how that was flipped and that Victor turned out to be a bad guy, but like the headmistress, she's
Mhm.
like we hate her and stuff, right? And I'm like, she's literally doing her job. And she even relents, and she's really flexible, right? And then that one teacher's like, oh, she's crazy, she's batshit. And like I said, I like that it was reversed and was like, oh well, she was actually good and trying to protect them, but also she went strigoi. So I don't know if like that kind of cancels it out and stuff. But it's like all of the men in power, it's like, oh no, we can, they're understanding, we can trust them, they're on our side. I was like even Rose's mom, right? She's a bitch. We don't trust her.
Yeah, don't know what's going on there with her mom. Yeah, Christian is an interesting character. Melon says totally stealing the royalty system. The rotation between the different families. Yeah, I really like that. It felt
I see that in fairy books a lot when you have like the different fae courts, but
Mhm.
I've never seen that in a vampire book before. So
It's funny
Yeah, I haven't seen it like in this setting before, and I think that is what
it's
made
funny
it cool.
that you say that when the queen's name was Titania, whom is the queen of the Fae court in folklore or Shakespeare or both.
Yeah, it's definitely a cool look on vampires. Okay, hold on. I'm going to switch the banner because I want to talk about the school setting because every time they reminded me, it like bothered me that this was set in Montana.
oh my god, yeah, so unexpected.
It doesn't make sense because it feels like this Eastern boarding school, but in Montana. Like, why?
Well, the culture's so American though, so I appreciated that.
Yeah, but didn't it? I kept thinking like, oh, we're in the East Coast, or even like, I don't know.
I
We're not
very
on
much
any
got
coast.
New England vibes.
It was so random.
I found it interesting that she was like, because it's the book starts out they're like 17 and stuff, and they're like, oh well, we've been staying on a college campus. Which for me, I'm like, why couldn't we then make them 18? So nothing with Dimitri wouldn't be so weird. 18 or 19.
Yeah, you could have made it a.
Especially when like they go back and they're like, oh, I appreciate that like our super vampire school is set up like a college university and not a high school. And I'm like, why can we not be like 19 or 20? Because we could still be YA
Yeah,
for 19
yeah,
or 20.
yeah. Then it probably couldn't have been marketed YA though. Like now these days, you market a lot younger for older. But in 2007, maybe they couldn't get away with that.
I mean, that's fair.
They said, I did want Southern vampires. Yeah, Southern vampires is a trope. New England would have worked for the academy setting. Montana felt so random on every front.
Hold on. I would like to put an asterisk that I feel like if there are genuine Southern vampire, I want actual Southern vampires, not Confederate vampires.
Ugh, yeah.
I don't feel like these would be the same.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I just never felt attached to this Montana setting. It just felt like this random like thing. Like in Twilight, you're in Washington because it's overcast. I know the Crave series that takes place in Alaska, kind of, I think,
I
a similar like cold atmospheric, like that kind of work. But this just felt random.
honestly, until like they mention Montana, I'm just like, this is fictional setting A, very American.
Fictional
Yeah,
setting.
but it just felt weird having these like Eastern Europe, like Russian vibes in Montana. I don't know.
I've never been to Montana. I can't speak on what it's like, but it did feel
It's like ranch vibes. Like Montana is peak ranch vibes. Like if it had been like a ranch boarding school, that would make sense. If there was some like horse girl vampires.
I was
But-
about to say they needed more horses.
Yeah, that would be. I don't know.
More horses, less random foxes.
Yeah. Okay, I'm getting behind in the comments, but I leave off here. It was somewhat done in Discovery of Witches, but that's a chonker and a bit like Wikipedia article. This guy isn't hook. I've heard mixed things about that book.
So guys everywhere, would you recommend I read this book or not? I'm getting mixed feelings.
Yeah.
I enjoyed A Discovery of Witches. I read it a few months ago, and then when I read Wallace's book, I kept getting confused because both of the love interests are named Matthew.
I
Interesting.
Wallace's book as a reward for myself for after I finish more reading. Let's say anything about Wallace's book.
Okay.
Fun fact, I prefer the Dimitri romance to the romance and the Discovery of Witches because they're both adults, yet he tries to
Yeah, that's so video explaining the attraction we have for vampires is from them being old, white, rich guys. From a class point of view, it's basically wanting the power they have.
That's interesting. Vampires in lore, like vampires in fiction historically, are symbolic of our dark desires and having to avoid them and stuff. And they are essentially a warning tale to young women to avoid men.
Yeah, like how kind of Kit said it showed like the hedonistic side.
I love that when people like get mad at Anne Rice or when they're like, I hate how vampires have become so sexual, and I'm like, I'm sorry.
Vampires have always been a
They've
sexual
always been
thing.
sexual, yeah.
Like, have you read Dracula? Like,
Yeah,
fucking Jonathan
Camilla, like this is all.
like Dracula's 3 wives tried to rape Jonathan Harker. Like, bro,
Yeah,
it's been there.
The OG harem. Maybe not the OG. We really gotta figure out how to distinguish the two. Oh, interesting. Mm-hmm.
What two? The Southern and Confederate? I would. Yeah.
To have vamps that are be a lot of old European families, so they can be older.
Yeah, part of it is that like vampires as we acknowledge them in modern fiction are a very European belief.
Yeah, it made sense, the Eastern European influence. That made perfect sense, but I didn't understand Montana. And they didn't really explain it, did they?
I
think it was just like because it was out of the way of like humans and stuff.
Yeah, because there's a lot of. I think it's just one of those things where it's like nothing's going on in Montana, so it's easy to hide a bunch of superpowered teenagers there.
I guess so. It just felt random to me culturally.
I'd recommend
if you like histories and lore.
I do, so all right, I'll give it a shot.
Oh, why is this all in caps? And also, they found someone who looks like Kristen Stewart to play the female MC, which was crazy the first time around because she appeared, and I'd be like, Bella, what the heck?
Bella, why the hell are you here?
I loved the casting in the movie. I actually thought the movie was really a great adaptation. I'm glad I took the time to watch it.
I concur with Malin that Anne Rice's only like true sin is to stop people from writing fanfics about her work.
Yeah.
Jonathan Harker must absolutely just change lives.
Yeah, no, that's exactly it.
100% what he was. Yeah,
Party pooper and nice.
But
do we have anything else to say about the school setting? Not really.
No, I love school settings because I like that they impose a structure to things. But
yes, yeah, I agree. It's like a trope that never goes out of style.
I like how, again, they felt very teenagery, and that she went to certain classes and she'd be like, "Hey, so can we learn more about this one thing?" And her teacher's like, "We learned about it earlier in the semester. If you had been paying attention." And she's like, "So anyway."
And I mean, a boarding school is just also a perfect fit for YA to kind of get the parents out of the plot.
Yeah. I mean, most of these parents were dead.
Yeah, you could just kill off the parents.
Yeah, well, if
they did both. They killed them and got them out the way. Rip the poor Eastern Slavic teacher, or the Slavic art teacher, who just killed in a throwaway line by Natalie. I feel
Mhm.
very kidnapped by One Direction when you read about the fact Bram Stoker could have been gay. I mean, oh, there was. Oh no, the evil hot older man took me hostage, and now I must be one of his brides. But I love my wife so much. No.
Yeah, the allegory in Dracula is pretty famous.
I
Hold
have.
on, what banners do I have left? I have prose and writing style, which I think we discussed a little bit, but do you guys have any thoughts?
I loved it. It's good writing style. I also like when because it's so deep first person. I like when Rose is like, I don't even know how to describe this thing, and I'm like, that's very, very cute, very relatable.
I agree. I think it was like really ideal YA writing style where things were clear, but it still had like quippy, funny moments. I think, like I said before, like the transition into looking to Alyssa's eyes was done really nicely in a clever way to sort of get a second POV without getting a second POV, which was nice.
Mhm.
Yeah. I was actually kind of obsessed with it at the beginning of the book. It was only when things got like really that slut shamey and then age gappy thing where it kind of threw me out.
Yeah.
But that was plot stuff, not writing style stuff. That's actually all my banners. Because we already did themes, and that's normally what I do last.
Oh, I found it interesting, and I liked that they like touched on beauty standards a little bit because, yeah, she's like, well, vampires like they find it hotter when you're like basically slim thick, but then like humans find it hotter if you're wispy thin, and I was like, I'm like, it's interesting that they would do that. And then I also like I wondered what about the vampire genetics make it so that they're mostly wispy thin. I'm like I found that really interesting. Like I don't necessarily think she should have gone into that. That was just a thing that I wondered about. But also it I will say her like the way that her Turkish ancestry is brought up only in reference to that is like she looks like an exotic princess with her
Oh gosh, I forgot about that.
because it's like it's only brought up at the beginning when she's like, yeah, my mom's like Irish and this
Yeah, I remember
and
this.
my
Oh,
dad
yeah.
was like Turkish, and so I look like an exotic princess and like this and that, and I'm like, but then it's like not really brought up again much later, except like at one point she's like, I don't know my dad, but he must have had like really good hair, and I'm like I just don't know about that. And that's kind of like the only way in which she's hashtag not like other girls is when she brings up how she looks.
Yeah, that's what I think. For a moment, I thought like, oh, where's this going? But I don't know. I actually really liked the book. But really, the age gap did leave such a nasty taste in my mouth about the whole experience. We didn't even talk about Natalie.
Yeah, like oh my gosh, like rereading it and knowing that Natalie left those animals, I'm like this fucking bitch, like the whole time.
Yeah, I totally fell for her. I liked her as a character, and I was like, what?
A theme I wanted to talk about: mental health and self-harm. I felt was handled really, really well and respectfully. That I don't know if the author intended it, but I also felt like she touched on the discussion of how like people with certain mental health conditions, like she doesn't list them, but I have friends with and relatives with this condition where it's like people with bipolar disorder sometimes don't want to take their medication because then they're not as manic, and their manic episodes like they can be like really creative and get a lot of stuff done, and so sometimes like they almost like while they're medicated and stuff they almost miss those manic episodes, right? Or it's like they don't want the depressive episodes, but yeah, and so when like Lissa was talking about how like taking her medication and stuff, bye Malin, and she was like, I can like feel the spirit, but I can't like connect to it anymore. That very much reminded me of my friends who would like talk about that and stuff, and so I was like, that's good. And the way the self-harm was portrayed, again, I've known people and that they talk about it in very much the same way Lissa did. So for me, I thought that was like a really good way to handle it. And like I said, it was very responsible way to handle it. And especially in a YA book, that is so important. And I also love that even though Lissa talked about the fact that like without her medication she would be able to like use the power of spirit, she still reassured Rose. She's like, I'm still going to take my medication because it really helps me and like I need it and stuff. So I'm like, that I felt that was such an important conversation, and the way that she handled it was just chef's kiss.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like the author did such a good job at like including a lot of small details into the world, where even though the book clearly stands on its own, it's such a good starter for a series because there's so many elements introduced, characters and plot points where you're kind of like, oh, I wonder what's going on here or there, or you know, this or that. That it's really a great start off for a series.
Sorry, I saw Kay's comment. Not that one.
Oh, sorry.
No, you're good. I just wanted to make sure that gays knew I wasn't laughing at them crying. But yeah, it's just as much like grad school being royal sucks the soul from you. But yeah. Fucking Victor being like, yeah, I know that I'm going to suck your life force, but I'm more important than you.
What a man.
Also, like, oh my gosh. Victor greatly, like, because we were going to talk about Natalie, and I feel like we need to, you know, talk about both, in that Natalie wanted her dad's love and affection so much that she, like, doomed herself to the, essentially the lowest of the low. Because I know earlier I said blood whores are below
I'll be right back.
But it might be the other way around. But either way, like, it's essentially he made her Strigoi so that she could have the power to do what he needed her to do, right?
Yeah, that I didn't see that coming. I don't know, I feel like this book, especially since I was in quite a reading slump this month, like it was a really good, like, I don't know, break from like my normal things I read. Just the classic soapy YA. I was just on for the ride. Even though it's like a book club book, I didn't feel like I was even analyzing it that much. I didn't see where, like, obviously I didn't know where the romance was going. I was like surprised by the plot twists. So yeah, it was a fun one. It was a fun one for me.
I had a good time. I'm probably gonna continue the rest if I can find them.
Same, I don't know. Since now I found that the library doesn't have them, I'm like, oh gosh.
Now y'all are making me look. Hold on, because I wanted to continue it, but I couldn't.
I think the second one is like a winter break story, and like not at the school, if I remember correctly. So
yeah, I'm definitely going to try to get my hands on book 2 at the very least. So
my library has up to book 6.
Yeah, there's 6 of them, and then there's 6 in the spinoff.
6 in the spin-off? What the heck?
I mean, that's fair. Keep it consistent. Mars Violet.
Any more closing thoughts?
I don't think so.
I loved it. I will continue the series.
Yeah, I had a good time. I thought it was very well put together for what it was, and definitely felt like a product of its time, but not in a derogatory way. Like, it feels 2000s to me, but in a comforting way.
It's a time capsule. Era.
Yeah, for sure. It was like, I don't know. I'm glad that I, like, that's like the whole point of the book club. I'm glad that I like now understand the sort of cultural touchstone of like a property that I've heard so much about. So
Rose is like the second fictional character in existence that I have heavily related to, and I have to stare at a wall and see what I think about that.
Who was the first?
Captain Marvel in the Captain Marvel movie.
Fair enough.
Interesting. Okay, so next month, no book club pick because we never have a book club pick in November. December, we're reading The Little Prince. I don't have a co-conductor. I mean, anybody's allowed to do it, but also I'm fine doing it by myself. That's what's on the agenda.
You should recruit Malin, because isn't it in French? And Malin speaks
Yeah, food. What a shame that Malin literally just left like 2 minutes ago.
I'm going to tag her in the book club.
Look, Malin, please go back and watch the last 2 minutes of the stream. Thanks. Little Prince, oh my god, yes, loved that book as a child. That's what I love to hear. That's what we try to aim for over here. Even though I'm thinking with the book club, I want to maybe lean more into YA picks and worry a little bit less about some middle grade stuff. But I'd be also fine maybe doing more of these like classics, like Little Prince, I think that are more considered a classic. I'm not sure what we're going to do in 2025, but I definitely am thinking about it. So I feel like the last months I've been so busy, the book club got a little neglected, but
I mean, it doesn't help that one of your co-conductors forgot she was co-conducting. Next time I'll write it down in my calendar so that I don't forget.
yeah, I'm cooking out plots and schemes. That's what Crystal always says, right? Plots, plans, and potentially schemes.
Mm-hmm.
Except I don't really have any schemes. I'm just open to changing because, like, look how successful this one was. A lot of people were in the chat, but sometimes it's literally just like me and the
You
conductor.
for like 30 minutes and no one showed up.
Yeah, so
Like, Eddie, if I'm ever not in the chat, normally what has happened was I was like, yeah, the book club is this day. And my husband's like, hey, we should go run these errands. And I'm like, yeah, we should go run these errands. And then I get up to run them and I'm like, the book club was today.
yeah, so I want to think of some fun things. I don't know what we can do. And maybe, I don't know. I think the live show format is still a good idea because it's the best way to talk about it. But I don't know if there's anything else that we could do to incorporate to make it more fun and interactive. So yeah, that's just what I'm thinking. So thank you so much, guys, for showing up and reading the book, and the chat for being so active. This was a pleasure as always.
Yeah, I had a great time chatting.
Have you guys got anything you would like to promote?
My book club Saturday, which will be at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. No, 5 p.m. Central, because I'm Central. So used to Storyteller's Heart at the moment. 5 p.m. Central Standard Time. We will be talking about Fantasy Lover by Sherilyn Kenyon. I may be defending my love of the book against my no longer teenage internet child. We will see.
Thank you. I appreciate the promo, guys.
I feel like a bad friend that I have it on my shelf. I'm not Crystal. I don't have everything in arm's reach.
Behind me, I never have it with me. I'm going to have a book chat for Laudnathon. We're going to discuss What Doesn't Break by Cassandra Khaw. Don't have a date yet. It probably won't be this weekend because it's going to be me, Crystal, and Wallace, and I know they're both very busy, so potentially the weekend after.
Okay.
Stay tuned for an announcement on the date eventually.
Look at you guys having exciting things. Literally, the book club is my only thing. And I'm happy with that. So thanks again. And where's the outro?
I don't know
Bye.
where to put it.
Here.